Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 194th Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Today, our panel will attempt to look into the future and give their best guess as to what the future holds for us. Our panel begins today with Dr. Ronald Chamberlin, retired senior research chemist, followed by, Joe Gaines, former member of the faculty of the University of Akron and also Wadsworth High School, and Patty Haskins, former member of the Wadsworth City Council and retired math teacher at Wadsworth High School, and Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&D Financial Services. Ron, in the last few years, life in the United States has gone through considerable and unprecedented changes. As someone who was born during the Great Depression and lived through at least 4 wars and has seen countless technical miracles, what do your instincts tell you is on the horizon?
John, thanks for asking. It certainly has been an amazing time in history that we have lived through, those of us of older years. And from walking on the moon to messenger RNA to the whole thing, is going on. I like to think that I'm normally kind of an optimistic person, but recently, as we might have said in German class, the Weltschmerz is beginning to overwhelm my Weltanschauung. My my pain of the world is overwhelming my outlook. So politically, the polarization is worse I've ever seen it, and I predicted that's going to stay that way for a while. I don't know if and what's causing it exactly. I think it's a feedback loop. The government says, okay, these people want this, they're polarized. The government polarizes more and the people follow suit because anyway, it's going on that way. And it occurs in all levels of the government. Look at Ohio and recently just today, or I guess yesterday, the Ohio Supreme Court struck down the redistricting plan as being unconstitutional, and it's back to the drawing board. So things like that are going on, and it probably will continue. I think in terms of the Democratic Party nationally, I think we're going to lose in the midterms. I think that the administration is taking the wrong sort here. I'm a liberal, but I like to think I'm much more of a moderate, and I think the president has been seduced more by the neoliberal wing of the party, and I think that's a mistake. I think he misread the results from the midterms or from the election last year, and this is going to happen. I'm pretty sure of it. Climate change, it's going to get worse, folks. We've got positive feedback loops going on here all the time. Climate warms up a little bit. The oceans warm up a little bit. They absorb less carbon dioxide because warmer solutions absorb less gas. The Arctic is warming up so that the snowpack is decreasing. Therefore, the sunlight is not being reflected back into space off the snow, which isn't there. Therefore, the Arctic warms up a little bit more. We got less snow. That's going on. People are trying, certainly big advances in solar cells and wind power and so forth, except in Ohio, which is still subsidizing coal burning plants. Coal is still 30% worldwide of energy production, if not more, and particularly in China, which is the worst in this case. United States is phasing it out, in spite of Joe Manchin, whose state is he's trying to hang on there. West Virginia used to have 200,000 people working in the coal industry. Now it's got about 30,000. And there's no war on coal. It's just losing out to other things. Certainly, I see that there's going to be continued increases in the technology for that, and there's some hope. Even a little old conservative Republican Wadsworth that put in solar cells to help with the energy production, and that's a great sign. That's a really great sign. Automobiles are going more electric. Ford has announced they're making the Ford F-150 are going to. They're going to look for government to build charging stations, and that's part of the infrastructure bills that are going on. But I think if the automakers make enough electric cars, they're going to build their own charging stations, and eventually that will happen. I know at least one person that drives an electric vehicle, and he's cautious. He has to know when he's around here. There aren't that many charging stations, if any, and he has to be careful about that. So that happens, but I think it's going to come along. I just worry, really, that
too little, too late.
Too little? No, not too little, too late. Well, maybe so. Maybe so. I think it's going to have a hard time hitting that temperature goal, and I think we're in for a much worse thing. And sure, it's going to be expensive to fix it, but it's going to be a lot more expensive if we don't try to fix it. So,
how do you feel about the future of nuclear?
Future of nuclear is fine. I think there are other nuclear processes, other power plant designs better than the cooled water reactors that we originally built. It's very expensive. I think there's some other alternatives maybe out there. Things like fuel cells that I worked on for many years, which are very efficient uses of fossil fuel, much better than just burning the stuff. But it's still fossil fuel and it still generates carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide reclamation and capture processes are going to continue to be worked on, and that will help. But yeah, it's common, and I don't think we have the political will to do enough to reverse it anytime soon. So I think we're in for a rough ride here. But that's my predictions.
Joe, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with what he's saying, but I'm looking more like education. When I see education, I see it as a business. It's not going to change back. Things have changed in business. We're no longer, going to stores. We're now doing everything on a computer, and that's what education is going, I think, in many cases. Hybrid, in other words, it's going to be a little mixed, but it's going to be a hybrid situation. I can see students working more on computers than going to school itself. I don't see it, the need for it as it was when I taught. And that's going to change a lot of things. It's going to change socialization. It's going to change organizations, clubs, sports, everything. But I see a change in education because of the computer and because of people getting more involved in expressing themselves through the computer than on one-to-one. You're not going to have the old days where the teacher stood in front of the class and lectured. That's going to be gone. Climate change, I just want to say one thing, and that is that I think we're really beginning to see the problems of climate change in this country. The weather is extreme at times, more tornadoes, causes more problems, more wind, all kinds of hassles and problems. So I can see that becoming a major issue also. You were going to ask me a question.
Yeah, I'm thinking about socialization in general. I know that, well, not only people my age, but people a lot younger, we just have tons and tons of memories of high school and friends. As a matter of fact, my class of 1957 in Cuyahoga Falls, we still meet once a month for lunch. Well, not the whole class. I think most of us are still alive, but not all. But we meet, and that sort of thing, and class reunions. I suppose that's going to be a thing of the past. Patty, what are your thoughts about being a high school teacher? Well, I can't hear you, Patty.
I actually had a lot of the same predictions that Ron had. I think that the 2022 election cycle is probably going to be one of the nastiest and most vile that we have seen in many years. And I'm very worried about that. I look at the commercials that are being run already on television for various candidates, and they're extremely nasty and in many cases full of ridiculous statements. I look at signage that is already out in our community for elections that are going to be, in November. And I won't tell you the address because I don't want to draw more attention to it. But the fact that I've seen a banner with profanity, uttermost, the queen mother of all swear words being used in a residential area, and that this is considered okay because it's for politics and it's, First Amendment rights. And I'm concerned about the civility that's being used for the upcoming elections. Now, I do think that the Republicans are going to take control of the House of Representatives, and that's not unusual because that usually happens that first cycle after a presidential election. So that doesn't surprise me, but I'm concerned about the candidates that are being run now. It's, for example, I just heard Herschel Walker, who is a wonderful football player for Georgia, but he's running for governor of Georgia. And I just heard him in an interview that's been pulled up because he's now under scrutiny because he is running for governor. And it was an interview with Glenn Beck of all people. And it was in August of 2020. And he was talking about COVID. And he said, you know what? He said, the FDA and the CDC are all holding back treatments. He said, I know of a mist, M-I-S-T, a mist that you walk into a building and you are sprayed with this. And then you're protected from COVID. And then as you walk out, you're misted again. And any particles of COVID that you've picked up are removed from you. This is a guy that wants to be governor of Georgia. And I have real concerns about, again, the quality of candidates. We're seeing candidates that are not reasonable people, that I don't consider to be thinkers, but rather have taken the far right or the far left approach. And they're the ones that are making the news, and they're the ones that are running. And I don't think that's what most of this country wants.
Is that a problem? Is that a problem with voters, or is that a problem with the media?
Both.
Both, I would say. And the media, we always talk about the media, and whenever that's used in a negative term, it's the MSNBCs, it's the NBCs. Fox News is the opposite of that. Newsmax is the opposite of that. It's out there on both sides promoting these candidates. There was an editorial in the Wall Street Journal today saying that, this one I thought was interesting, that they think that the Democrats are going to run Hillary Clinton in 2016. And how ridiculous this would be. I found it hilarious because Laura Trump is saying, why would they ever put up Hillary Clinton, who already lost an election? But of course, she's supporting her father-in-law, who also lost an election and wants to run. So concerns there. I think that Donald Trump is going to announce that he's going to run for president in 2024. Although I don't know, I'm getting more of this inkling that he may end up not running for fear of losing. As much as he loves power, he hates losing even more. And I'm not sure he can win again. We need fresh people in politics.
Yeah, what he really wants to do, he really wants to be emperor. I'm convinced.
Well, that's possible too. I agree with Ron on climate change and with Joe and what they said. I think this is going to be a big, we're going to start to see some definite effects of this. I do think that the right to life movement is going to be successful with the Supreme Court rulings that will be coming out, I believe, in July. I do think that the Voting Rights Act is going to pass in some way, shape, or form. And maybe that's wishful thinking on my part, but I am concerned when states are putting into effect laws that would take the final declaration of who wins and so forth, taking it away from the election boards, a nonpartisan election board's decision, and putting it in the hands of the party, whether it be Republican or Democrat, that is in control in the state legislature.
You really think that's going to happen?
Well, that's what Georgia has in effect right now. That's what they're putting through.
Is that right? I guess
Yeah.
I was unaware of
That's
that.
my concern. I keep hearing about, Democrats want to get rid of voter IDs and going to the polls and all of that. My big concern with the Georgia law is that clause right there,
Yeah.
because that takes it should be nonpartisan, and nonpartisan, election boards work in Ohio. They should be able to work at anywhere. My final prediction is I think the Cleveland Browns are going to the Super Bowl next year.
Good for you.
Don't ask me why. That is just total wishful thinking.
Brian, what do you think about the Browns?
Well, I stopped watching the Browns when they moved them to Baltimore, so I really have no dog in that fight when it comes to the Browns. I would consider myself a very optimistic person. I'm a glass half full person. I think we're going to figure all this stuff out. I have 100% hope and faith in some of the brightest minds that we have here in the United States. They're going to figure out some of the issues with climate change. It's not going to be the environmentalist dream of just shutting down, coal plants and shutting down nuclear and just going off of wind and solar. It's not going to happen. We can't do that when a country is dependent upon petroleum. And everywhere you look, I don't want to be a shill for the petroleum industry, but from plastics to what you pump in your car, all the benefits that come from plastics and petroleum, we just can't throw out the window because a group of people think that we need to go back to the Stone Age when it comes to, returning the earth to its natural state. I don't believe that. I don't believe that we're going to go down this road that we just cannot return from. If you believe everything that you read, and you look over the course of history, the arc of history favors people that think and countries that allow people to think. I've read a lot of great books this year, and it just has restored my faith and hope in the type of country we have. And we can agree to disagree. These types of programs are great. I have all the faith in the folks that are on the other side of the aisle, that they'll come to their senses when it comes to some of the things that they get thrown out there. I have faith in the folks on the right hand that need to come back to the middle. We just cannot, this tribalism. It was interesting to note, I don't know if you followed this, but it's a good example of the tribalism that exists today. There was a backup of traffic on 95 that lasted about 20 hours. People were stranded on 95 there in Virginia, just outside of, Gaithersburg or whatever. And social media they were just livid that the Republican governor of Virginia didn't do something about that. Well, then they pointed out that he wasn't the governor yet. It was the Democratic governor that was still the governor. And boy, the social media just was like, he's doing such a great job. I mean, he's on top of this right away, So I just think that we're going to come back from the edge of this, as we always have, and we're going to be fine when it comes to our politics. We have 3 branches of government, and we live with that. Politics is like making sausage, they've said. It's ugly. It gets nasty. Social media is a magnifying glass. It's that bullhorn that gives these disparate voices a platform. And it washes out a lot of moderate people that would agree. You know, Joe Manchin is a moderate, and he's being cast as some sort of wicked conservative guy that's, you know, holding up all these wonderful things that Joe Biden wants to do. Well, the fact of the matter is that's how the Senate works. You know, it doesn't make any difference how many people you have in your state. The Senate's, you know, you get 2 representatives. It's the House of the people over there in the, you know, the House of Representatives. That's where it's done by population. So, you know, I really have a lot of faith and hope that 2022 is going to be better than 2021. I think that we're making a lot of headway with climate change, with electric vehicles. These are all steps in the right direction. I really just, I can't make a case for us being just so far gone that, you know, we're going to stop being the type of country we are. I don't believe some of the stuff on the very, very extreme right, that somehow, you know, there's all these conspiracies, nor do I adhere to the left, you know, the very, very left wing stuff that just seems to just bludgeon people when they come out against, you know, some of the aspects of climate change and you know, those little aspects that come up that people get so inflamed about. So I'm very optimistic about things. I wish I had my little 8-ball when I was growing up, you know, that 8-ball where you turn it around and you asked it a question and it gave you this generic answer. But I think we're going to figure out the climate change thing. I think we're all going to be able to live with it. I think we're going to figure out the voting and all that kind of stuff. You know, I haven't worked the polls longer than Patty, but in Ohio, I think if they took what we do in Ohio and as a model for all the states, we wouldn't have some of these issues.
Totally agree.
You know, I feel very confident that whoever votes in Ohio, their vote is counted. And I think that smart minds like Elon Musk, that guy is just wicked smart. And no matter if you agree with his politics or not, the guy has started a company that's throwing out cars that are the future, you know? So
Well,
I am very optimistic about.
I've got a question for the whole panel. Well, first of all, I have to tell you, when I started my stopwatch, it didn't start. So I have no idea where we are. But the panel, what do you think about the 2022 being a good time for a third party?
I don't think it will happen.
I don't either.
I don't think so.
No,
No,
it's been tried too many times. There are
No.
third parties.
I know,
out
but
there.
we've never had it. We've never had a time like this.
Well, do we have it already?
We're
The
in
Trump party and
regeneration.
the Republican Party, are those two
No.
different parties?
no.
I don't
I
see
know, and one side hates the other.
You can say the same thing about the Democrats. If you listen to AOC,
Oh, absolutely.
she wants a
Oh, yeah.
progressive Democratic Party. She wants to kick people out like Joe Biden. She wants to kick people out like Joe Manchin. She wants to kick out the moderate voices in the Democratic Party. We haven't gone
Who's this?
far enough as far as she's concerned. So no, I don't think this third party stuff, it doesn't work at all. I'm sorry.
Joe?
Panelists, you have 1 minute.
Oh, good. Joe, you've got 30 seconds. What were you going to say?
I have no idea.
Oh, Joe.
Well, I want to know what Patty's viewpoint on education was, the change.
Oh, you know, my big concern is the movement to private schools with vouchers and so forth, because, you know, people keep saying how much it costs to educate a student in a public school. And if the money went with the child, well, that's great. But private schools don't accept every child. Private schools do not educate those that have severe disabilities.
Mhm.
They don't have to deal with that. If they don't like the kid, they get rid of them. And
Okay, that's probably a good idea in some schools. Okay, well, I thank you for a very good program. I'm going to want to watch this one again. So see you all in 2 weeks.
Take
Take care,
care.
guys. So long.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television. You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.